The Matrix is everywhere. It's all around us. Here, even in this room, you can see it out of your window or on your television. You can feel it when you go to work or go to church or pay your taxes. It is the world that has been pulled over your eyes to blind you from the truth. That you are a slave, Neo. That you, like everyone else, was born into bondage. Kept inside a prison that you cannot smell, taste, or touch. A prison for your mind. Unfortunately, no one can be told what the Matrix is. You have to see it for yourself. You can take the blue pill and the story ends. You wake up in your bed and you believe whatever you want to believe. You take the red pill and you stay in Wonderland, and I show you how deep the rabbit hole goes. You see, the Matrix is very much akin to the Black Matriarchy. The reason that is because the Black Matriarchy constitutes most of the black community. Just like in the movie The Matrix, how most of humankind were trapped within the system of the Matrix. Most black people are trapped within the system of the Black Matriarchy. Damn near everyone you know and in love is a part of the Black Matriarchy. And every person, damn near every person you know and love is a potential enemy to you as someone who is free, unplugged, and fighting for a functional patriarchal society. You see, it is something that even I, as a young boy, as a young man, did not realize that it existed as such. And it took years of understanding, observation, and research to understand that the Black Matriarchy was not a myth, it was a very real society. A very real in its existence was very much so a reality. You see, the Black Matriarchy is the black community. Those of us who sees its dysfunction, who sees its vile objectives and partnership to white supremacy, we are the outliers. We are the free and unchained children of Zion. You see, we are the small minority of those who are unplugged from the Black Matriarchy. And more brothers and sisters are being unplugged by the day. You see, the system of the Black Matriarchy is very simple. It is a system, a group of family structures that are mainly nuclear families or single mother households. They're mainly composed of single mother households, but they're also composed of nuclear family as well. So let's start with the single mother household. See, it is a cycle of family structures that are single mother households that is composed of a mother who is unmarried and has multiple children, usually by multiple men. Usually 2 to 6 different men. In this structure, the woman usually, in most cases, has never been married. She usually has a series of boyfriends over the course of her life, which some of those boyfriends end up being her baby fathers. And the way it is structured is that the woman takes on the dominant breadwinner role, being a single parent in a lot of cases. Sometimes she works and has government benefits such as Section 8 and food stamp cards for long periods of time, WIC, and these type of things. She is the breadwinner, and so if she has women children, they see her and they take on the dominant masculine role of being a breadwinner. And the male children that see this, they take on the feminine submissive role of being a homemaker. A lot of times, these are guys who some would call Madden kings and bums, couch surfers, guys that a lot of times have no interest in making money. They have no interest in getting a job. They have no interest in starting a business. The only interest they have is in having sex, having fun, and laying at home playing video games. The true dynamic of this single mother matriarchal family structure is a woman who is the dominant masculine role, who, despite being very emotional, is the leader of the family. She is the one that controls the destiny of the family, and she spreads her mindset as a woman to her kids. And so the true travesty, the true tragedy with this family structure is that both of the kids are getting a one-sided view of life. They're only getting life from a woman's perspective. They don't get the man's perspective. They don't get a balanced perspective. And they don't even get a man's perspective, let alone the perspective of several adults through the very effective extended family structure, which is common to the African, most common to those on the African continent, and which is the true family structure of African people, you see. So now, outside of, to kind of summarize the single parent household structure, you have a single mom who is never married. She dates different men over the course of her life. She uses them for sex, labor, protection, provisions, but she remains a leader within her family structure. These guys are subordinate to her. This family structure reflects the matriarchal clans of the spotted hyenas in Africa, where the highest male is lower than the lowest female hierarchy-wise, and the women or the females are the leaders. They have higher levels of testosterone, than the men, and they even have and develop false penises because of their high levels of testosterone, and of course they're larger in size. You know, I did a podcast on that a few months ago, going into specific detail on the matriarchal hyenas, the spotted hyenas in Africa, and how that matriarchy works. And much like the hyenas and the matriarchal black matriarchy, the males have no role in raising any of the children. They are strictly there for sex, provisions, protections, and they are and labor, and they are usually traded out for other males throughout that woman's lifespan. Now, you also have the second family structure within the black matriarchy, which is when they are actually married. When you have a matriarchal husband who is dominated by the woman. I mean, I've seen this several times to various degrees, right? I've seen it where the woman forcefully threatens the man and abuses the man, and she leads to that manner. I've seen it where the men have been more quiet, but even in this scenario where you have a weak man who is unfit to lead and who allows himself to be abused emotionally and physically by the woman, this also is a part of the black matriarchy, because the man in all cases, or in most cases, he plays the feminine role and he has a feminine disposition. He is submissive to the woman. And you know, there are a lot of reasons for this particular setup. You know, a lot of times when you look at this family structure, the man accepts it because he's seen it from his own father. He's seen it, and he's mimicked the behavior from his own father, and he's looked for the same type of overbearing, dominant woman that he had in his mother. He looks for that in his potential wife, and he accepts that structure. I mean, I've seen couples like this where, you know, the woman is emotionally abusive and physically abusive, and literally hit and threaten the man for some of the most trivial of things, you see. So this is the structure of the black matriarchy. A very dysfunctional family structure that we have in the black community within the wilds of America. Now, initially, when I started to theorize on the black community and the family structure, it was strictly based off of observation, and I was under the false conclusion that this family structure came up around the 70s, once no-fault divorce and child support for particular people, particular women, even though they weren't married, started to be able to get child support even though they weren't married. So I theorized initially that these were things that happened that created the issue. But later, I started to be introduced by references and studies going back to the 60s and the early 19th century that started to change my mindset. And now my understanding and theory is that this has always existed within the black community since slavery. The only difference is that once the 70s came about, is that this type of family structure started to increase and increase. And the only difference is that in the past, you had you had nuclear families that were matriarchal, but the nuclear family started to slowly turn into the single mother household. But even though those nuclear families in the past, most of them were still black matriarchal families. You see? So now, you did have, understand that you did have outlier families that, like the ones that I have come from, like the ones that I've come from, and that you had patriarchal families that, patriarchal black families that came from free people of color. Okay, you had a small group of free people of color that either never experienced slavery or that somehow found their way to freedom from slavery, that did not experience the matriarchal system of family that was perpetrated on black people and forced on black people by the slave masters. You see? So, I am fortunate enough to come from one of these families that are patriarchal, but it is the minority. Now, the issue with the patriarchal families within the black community is that they are so few and far in between, and that they are so outnumbered by the black matriarchy, is that they could eventually be absorbed through marriage through this black matriarchy. You see, even within my own patriarchal family, my great grandfathers did marry women that were children of the slave trade, and their children, some of their children did marry women that were children of the slave trade. And so a lot of that patriarchy was in danger of being destroyed and being opposed by these strong matriarchs. And the fact that there's not many people theorizing, many people don't understand this, the fact that most people don't have the vocabulary and the understanding of this, is how even within patriarchal families you can be watered down or taken over by matriarchal families. Because you have to understand, a lot of the patriarchal mindsets and tenets aren't necessarily known or understood on a conscious level for a lot of people. Like, it's not talked about, it's not theorized, there's no conversations about it. It's more of how you behave on a subconscious level. So you have these men who are willing to bend and compromise because they want the relationships to work, you see. So, you know, the woman with the red dress within the Matrix, understand that the tragedy and the trap that is set for black men is the fact that we are attracted to African women in America, African women in Brazil, African women on the continent, African women in the Caribbean. But the issue with African women in America are African descendants of slave women, is that we find them physically attractive. We cannot resist. It's almost like we can't resist their features. But like the woman in the red dress, she is a part of the Matrix. She is an enemy. She is used as a tool by the overall black matriarchy, which is funded, propped up, and supported by white supremacy, she is an enemy, you see. Now, am I saying that all ADOS women are our enemy? Absolutely not. You do have some of those, like you have some of us black men who are not a part of the matriarchy, who are unplugged from the matrix of the black matriarchy. But the vast majority of us are not. Where the vast majority of us are parts of the system. Until they are able to be unplugged, they remain an enemy, a distraction, you see. Now, in terms of the black matriarch, what you must understand is that all societies, the foundation for those societies are the men. And what I mean by this is that when you look at the black matriarchy, like you look at the matriarchal spotted hyena in West Africa, some of the biggest threats and some of the biggest defenders of this system of the black matriarchy are the males. You see, if you cannot, a lot of mistakes that people make is trying to appease to the mindset of the women, you see. But if you want to defeat or to convert the black matriarchy, you must not appeal to the women, you must appeal to the men first and foremost. And the reason being is because the men supply the protection for those women. The men supply the seed of life for these women to be able to procreate. And most important, the men supply the sex for these women. Sex of the African American ADOS man is one of the most desired resources of women of the black matriarchy. You have many of these women who will proudly and gladly admit, I'm talking the most evil, vile, anti-black ADOS male misandrous will gladly admit that they will not do anything with a black man. They will not allow him to lead. They will not allow him to do anything. They will not deal with him on a serious romantic level. But they have no problem getting some ADOS man dick. They have no problem getting some black dick. They have no problem going for a roll in the hay with the very men that they hate and despise. You see? So this is what you must understand about the black matriarchy. It is propped up by men who are trained by their matriarchal mothers to protect and to work for the hive, like a nice little worker bee, a nice little soldier bee in a honeycomb, protecting the queens. You see, if you can convert the men over to your way of thinking, if you can give them the red pill, then their whole colony, once you reach a certain critical mass, their whole colony will perish. So that's it for this video, brothers. I hope you enjoyed this episode of Black Matriarchy Dissected. Be sure to check out the website coming soon, thejesseveal.com. Be on the lookout. Peace.